He wasn't supposed to win the Tour de France. For most of his career, Geraint Thomas was a loyal teammate, the man crashing on cobbles or dragging leaders up the mountain, often finishing races battered, bruised, but not forgotten. The legend of Geraint Thomas will live long with his tenacious efforts, his resilience, and the victories that have also been bestowed upon him. And what happened in 2018 that changed his life forever, winning the Tour de France. From the track to the cobbles to the Champs-Élysées, his journey was anything but ordinary. So the question is simple: how good was Geraint Thomas really? Before we start as well, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel here on the Cycling Dane. And with that, let's get back to it. Before Geraint Thomas was conquering the mountains, he made his name on the velodrome. He was part of the United Kingdom's golden era on the track, winning the gold medal in the team pursuit in Beijing in 2008 and then again in 2012, where the squad he was part of shattered the world record on their way to gold. Add in 3 world championship titles as well, and it's clear that Thomas had built an engine for greatness. But he was restless. He wanted more than the boards of the track. Thomas was jostling earlier on the track with the road, and he turned professional on the road in 2007 with Barloworld, where he also did his first ever Tour de France at only 21 years old and even finished it. Later on, Thomas joined the newly formed British team Team Sky in 2010, and at first he was seen as more of a classics rider with time trial ability. He won the Bayern-Rundfahrt in 2011 impressively, showing that he could handle stage races and win there, and he briefly led the Tour de Romandie in 2012 after winning the opening stage, before turning his full focus to the London Olympics. The real turning point, however, came in 2013 at the Tour Down Under, where Thomas attacked on the corkscrew climb and managed to hold off the rivals to win the stage, taking the leader's jersey. He eventually finished 3rd overall and collected the points classification on top of this, showing good signs of growth as a rider. Later that season, he placed 2nd at the Bayern-Rundfahrt and 15th at the Criterium du Dauphiné, despite working for Chris Froome, hinting also that Geraint Thomas had stage race potential and ambition. But 2013 is not really remembered for his results, more his toughness. On the opening stage of the Tour de France in Corsica, Geraint Thomas was unfortunately caught up in a mass crash, fracturing his pelvis, and for most riders that would have meant abandoning, but for Geraint Thomas, no. He rode the entire 3 weeks, finishing 140th out of 141 finishes, and managed to help Chris Froome to win the yellow jersey. It was a staggering act of resilience that set the tone for his reputation as one of the hardest men in the peloton. In 2014, Thomas stepped up again. He finished 3rd at the E3 Harelbeke, 8th at the Tour of Flanders, and even 7th in Paris-Roubaix, proving that he could survive the chaos of the cobbles and the ruggedness of that terrain against legends such as Fabian Cancellara and Tom Boonen. That year, he also managed to win the Bayern-Rundfahrt for a 2nd time in a row thanks to a dominant time trial performance, and he was the only Brit to finish that year's Tour de France, placing 22nd after Chris Froome had unfortunately abandoned. But the highlight came at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, where Thomas won bronze in the time trial, and then in the road race with a late attack, he managed to take a famous solo victory, claiming gold on home soil, but representing his home country of Wales. If 2014 was about promise, 2015 was about proof. Thomas started with overall victory at the Vuelta al Algarve, winning stage 2 and defending his lead with a strong time trial and a summit finish. During Paris-Nice, he pushed Rishi Port hard in the mountains, finishing 5th overall and really showing the growth he'd made as a climber as well. At Milan-San Remo, he did attack on the Suppressor and the Poggio, briefly riding solo before getting caught, but just showing that he was really aggressive. Then came the biggest spring triumph, victory at E3 Harelbeke by riding tactically, getting rid of riders such as Peter Sagan and crossing the line to win his first cobble one-day race. The first Brit to ever win the prestigious cobble race, and he followed that with a third place at a very brutal Gent-Wevelgem, where gale force winds blew riders off their bike, including Thomas himself, who crashed heavily before remounting and still making the podium. Sensational to think about. In the summer of that year, he nearly won the Tour de Suisse, finishing only 5 seconds behind Simon Spilak, agonizingly close, and at the Tour de France, he was a strong domestique once more for Chris Froome, but also shone himself. He climbed with the best on the Col de Pierre Saint-Martin and sat 5th overall after 2 weeks. Then came disaster on stage 16, descending the Col de Massé. Warren Barguil clipped him, sending him head first into a telegraph pole. Somehow he finished the stage, but his GC hopes were ruined and he slipped to 15th overall, yet his performance confirmed one day perhaps challenge for Grand Tour podiums. In 2016, Thomas was fast out of the blocks by winning Paris-Nice, his biggest stage race victory to date, where he rode very strong to hold off riders such as Alberto Contador. And at the Tour de France, once more, Geraint Thomas was very strong in support of Chris Froome, but once again, crashes haunted the Welshman. In 2017, fresh highs and lows, he won the Tour of Alps early on, and at the Giro d'Italia, he started as Sky's co-leader, but crashed hard after a police motorbike caused a pileup on the blockhouse. Later that summer, he won the opening time trial of the Tour de France and wore the yellow jersey just for a few days. And just days later on, he crashed again on a wet descent and broke his collarbone, ending his race. Another chance gone for the Welshman. But everything changed in 2018. Thomas opened his winning account by winning the Criterium de Dauphiné, arriving in the Tour de France as Chris Froome's lieutenant, who had just come off winning at the Giro d'Italia, but this time the road opened up for him. He was very good in the opening week, sitting 2nd overall, and then on stage 11, starting in Albertville, he made the decisive move, attacking close to the finishing line, managing to get rid of Tom Dumoulin and Chris Froome, took the victory, and thereby also took the yellow jersey as well. So thereby he was leading the Tour de France on stage 11. The following stage was the famous Alpe d'Huez stage, and here again he was sitting in the favorites group, and towards the finish he opened the sprint first, becoming the first Welsh winner on the Tour de France and the first rider to win on the Alpe d'Huez in the yellow jersey. He never cracked, he never showed weakness. And in the final week, while rivals like Tom Dumoulin and Primož Roglic attacked, Thomas remained calm, defending his lead with authority. He finished the last competitive stage, finishing 3rd on the time trial, and managed to celebrate his first ever Tour de France victory in Paris the following day.
Thank you very much, and vive le Tour.
This wasn't luck or a fluke, it was complete control across 3 weeks, a transformation from perennial domestique to a champion of the sport's biggest race. And after that, his stock went through the roof, appearing even on mainstream shows like Graham Norton. The following year, after a bit of a slow build-up, best result being a 3rd place in the Tour de Romandie, Thomas returned to the Tour de France as defending champion and not finishing the Tour de Suisse. It was unknown what was going to happen here, but there was also a rising star amongst them that had been helping him in 2018, Egan Bernal, and on this chaotic Tour de France, it was Egan Bernal who managed to take the victory. But Geraint Thomas rode strongly, never showing weakness, and managed to finish 2nd overall. So it was a 1-2 for Ineos at the time, which was absolutely remarkable to say the least. He proved that his Tour de France win was really built on ability the year before. In 2020, he targeted the Giro d'Italia, but unfortunately that goal was completely squashed when on the start of one of the stages he early on hit a stray beat-on, and that causing a crash, breaking his hip, and ultimately had to abandon. The following year as well, he managed to win the Tour de Romandie and had a bit of bad luck at the Tour de France, so finished 41st overall. 2022 was a bit of a different year, a bit of a pick-me-up for Geraint Thomas. Early on in the year, there wasn't too many results to write home about, but as we were getting closer to the Tour de France, he showed true ability as he managed to finally get a win in the Tour de Suisse, riding very well and being 2nd in the final time trial, beating out Sergio Higuita and Jakob Fuglsang for the win that year. And at the Tour, he started in Denmark as their leader, and he slowly crawled up the GC in the first week, sitting 3rd overall by the time they came to the first rest day, and when Tadej Pogačar cracked on Col de Garanon, he managed to finish third on that stage, and on the Alpe d'Huez stage, finishing 7th on that day as well. He still sat up there, and he held the third place all the way to the finish and shared the podium with Tadej Pogačar and Jonas Vingegaard at the end. In 2023, he returned to the Giro d'Italia, and here he was strong early on, coming very close to a time trial victory, only losing out by a second to Remco Evenepoel, who took the Maglia Rosa. Remco Evenepoel ultimately left the race early with COVID, so Thomas took over the jersey on stage 10 and wore it 7 days, with 2 days losing it to Bruno Almarai briefly. But it looked like Geraint Thomas had this Giro d'Italia almost wrapped up, as even on stage 16 he managed to distance Primož Roglic, finishing second to Joao Almeida. But on the final time trial to Montelezari, despite finishing second, lost the Giro d'Italia by 14 seconds to Primož Roglic. Absolute heartbreak for the Welshman.
I think 14 seconds is probably better than 4, because then I'll be picking it apart even more. So yeah, the legs going a bit about K&R from the top of that climb, and kind of knew wasn't quite on it, but yeah.
But at 37, this was yet another near miss, but a reminder of his incredible longevity as well. In 2024, he targeted the Giro d'Italia again, and here his goal was to stay consistent and stay up towards the front, which he did. Another Slovenian won the race with Tadej Pogačar, but Geraint Thomas had a very solid performance, finishing in 3rd place. 2025 was Geraint Thomas's final year. He announced that he would not be riding further, and his final race after he had been to the Tour de France and had his farewell tour around mini races was going to be at the Tour of Britain, and the race was finishing very close from where his illustrious career began as well. So a fitting end to one of the greatest British riders that we've seen ever. So how good was Geraint Thomas really? Of course, the crashes, riding the 2013 Tour de France with a fractured pelvis, being forced out in yellow in 2017, hitting the deck in 2020 and 2021. Thomas's career was as much about resilience as the results. At his peak, he was one of the most complete riders of his generation, able to win time trials, classics, 1 week stage races, and ultimately the biggest prize of them all. He may not have the Tour de France records of Chris Froome and the explosiveness of Tadej Pogačar, but Thomas's journey from track to cobble to yellow jersey is truly unique. His toughness, ability, and quiet consistency made him a champion in the truest sense. From the broken bones to the Champs-Élysées in yellow, Geraint Thomas's career is a story of persistence, evolution, and moments of brilliance that ensures his place in cycling history. Anyways, with that, that's basically it for this video. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and do check out the video of Bradley Wiggins, his teammate, as well, or why not Marco Pantani. But for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you around.